Good evening and welcome to another live and unpredictable Q&A, the program where you get to ask the questions. Well, tonight, to answer the questions from our audience at home and here in the studio, I'm joined by the founder of Crikey Stephen Mayne, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Julie Bishop, lawyer and children's author, Randa Abdel-Fattah, the Minister for Agriculture, Tony Burke, and the Foreign Editor of The Australian, Greg Sheridan. Please welcome our panel. Before the program, our audience members submitted their questions. We've chosen those we think are the best, but the members of the panel don't know what they'll be asked, so they'll be answering them all off the cuff. The program is live between 9:35 and 10 p.m. Eastern Australian time, so you can send your name, address and questions via the web at abc.net.au Q&A or by SMS to the number on your screen, 197 555 That's 197 555 Well, let's go now to our first question. It comes from Clarissa Simmons.
From watching the US presidential election, it seems that sexism has become more acceptable than racism. Do you think this is the case in Australian society?
Randa Abdel-Fattah, what do you think?
Well, certainly, when you look at the way the media covered Hillary Clinton's campaign, it was quite obvious that there were a lot of gender stereotypes that were played upon. I think that we still have a very patriarchal society and we still have a long way to go in Australia when it comes to sexism and the way that we also treat our female politicians in the media in Australia. So I think that there is definitely room for improvement in Australian politics too. Greg
Sheridan, was Hillary Clinton brought down by sexism, do you think?
No, not a bit. No, she was brought down by a brilliant candidate, Barack Obama. I think being a woman helped Hillary. I think being African-American helped Obama. I think being 72 and white and conservative is not going to help John McCain. And Americans would love to elect either a woman president or an African-American president to show they're not racist. I think it's been beneficial for both those candidates.
Let's hear from Stephen Mayne on this.
Well, Greg, why did Hillary get such a bad run in the press? I mean, I think that Barack Obama got an absolute dream run. He was everyone's favourite candidate, and objectively, Hillary got slammed by the press. So I think there is sexism in the American political system.
I think that's true, but she wasn't getting slammed until Obama became a dominant candidate. And I think what happened was the media scrum moved their affections from Hillary to Barack Obama. But if Barack Obama hadn't been running, none of this sexist stuff against Hillary would have happened. The media is very rough on politicians for whatever characteristics they have. If Tony Jones was Prime Minister, they wouldn't like white-haired men, you know.
Can't imagine that. Now listen.
But Tony, I don't think gender has actually played a role in the outcome of the Democratic nomination. I think Barack Obama is an outstanding candidate and there's a lot of momentum behind him. But you look at some of the polls, and I saw one recently, 70% of those polled said they didn't trust Hillary Clinton. It was a question of honesty. And, you know, I also think that the US is a bit over Bush-Clinton. They're looking for something new, and so I think that the race between Obama and McCain will be one of the most extraordinary that we've seen. And the Democrat nomination from the first woman and the first African-American, I think reflects very well on American society.
Very quick, just picking up what Stephen Mayne was saying there, she was referred to as a she-devil. She was referred to by talk show hosts as being like everyone's first wife standing outside the probate court. She was accused of cashing in on a sympathy over her husband's infidelity. I mean, these were pretty tough lines being run against her.
Well, I think some pretty tough lines have been run against Barack Obama. I mean, he's been put under a lot of scrutiny, and we're just seeing the beginning of what's going to be thrown at John McCain. Now, John McCain is a very impressive person. He's a true war hero. I met him in Washington last year. You can't write him off at all. So when we get to an Obama-McCain fight and a square-off between those two, I think you'll see the media will be picking favourites. They'll be running very negative lines against both. But that's politics. That's a robust democracy. And I don't think Hillary's been badly treated.
She was probably expecting... what they said about Bush, for God's sake.
Sorry?
Think what they said about Bush all the time,
indeed,
for goodness
sake. Indeed. It's a very robust democracy over there. And I think it's a credit to their country that they've now got an African-American, they've had the first woman run as a Democrat candidate, and they'll be up against a very experienced senator. So it's a race to watch.
Well, let's hear from the minister. We've got a minister of the government here. Who are you plugging for? What do you think?
That's the fastest way to make me not a minister by the end of the program.
Go ahead then.
I mean, there's no doubt. yes, you'll always be able to, in any political campaign, pull out quotes that are deeply embarrassing and really disappointing. And certainly with Hilary in the US media's coverage, you can find quotes that are deeply offensive. You can find the same with Obama, and probably we're about to find the same with McCain. I actually think of all the presidential contests, there's been a really positive engagement this time. I've heard more from American commentary about ideas and plans for the future in this contest than I can remember hearing in any other. So yeah, there's been lots of negative, and that will always be part of any political contest. But I actually don't think we should lose sight of the opportunity that's actually there in this next presidential race.
Someone from the audience here wants to come in on this discussion. I'm going to let that happen.
I think we're a little bit premature because we haven't actually been informed on who the running mates are. And if Madam Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice was a running partner for the Republicans and Hilary, the running partner, it would be a most interesting contest from the juxtaposition of prejudice.
Would it be riveting, wouldn't it, if you
It'd
had
be
Condoleezza
fascinating
Rice?
because I think the first time you'd actually have a contest from the running mates and not the actual men.
OK, we'll take that as a comment. We've actually got another question pertaining to this from Margaret Simpson. Where's Margaret Simpson?
Panel, do you think any of us here are likely to live to see a black president in Australia?
Black president in Australia or black prime minister?
Got a couple of hurdles here.
We might have a republic, we might have a black president, but let's go for black prime minister right now. Julie Bishop.
Well, it will come down to the number of people of mixed race or other ethnic origins getting into Parliament. And currently we don't have an Indigenous person in the Parliament. I think the last was Aidan Ridgway. So we have to ensure that more people from more diverse backgrounds get into Parliament, and then of course chance and circumstance will dictate whether or not they become the leader of their party and therefore the Prime Minister of the country. But I would hope that in this country we would have political representatives that reflect the vast diversity of the Australian community.
Tony Burke.
The Parliament generally has caught up slowly with what the rest of the Australian community has realised. I think the answer to the question is yes. I think we probably will. And I think when we get there, it will be a good thing, and certainly I'm pleased that you added the word president. I like to think that that day comes. But
you'd like to see a black president of Australia, Tony Burke?
I think we'll eventually get there. Yeah. And what I'd certainly like to see is where that's certainly not considered by anyone to be a problem.
I think we're much more likely to see a black president than a black prime minister. If we become a republic, there'll be a very strong incentive for people to appoint an Indigenous head of state. I think that's a very strong possibility. But I think both parties are hopeless at reflecting the diversity of Australia. Where are the Asian Australians? Where are the Mediterranean Australians in their real numbers? Both parties are so monochrome that we will eventually have a non-white Prime Minister, but it won't be in our lifetime.
Randa, you have Palestinian and Egyptian background originally, obviously Australian now, but where are the Islamic Australians in Parliament?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that somebody who comes from a hyphenated identity, as I do, I see that it won't happen in our lifetime, which is what you asked. I think that we need to first address the appalling inequalities between the life conditions of Indigenous Australians with other Australians. And because of those inequalities and obstacles, it's really fanciful for us to think that they're going to be able to overcome these sorts of obstacles and make it into Parliament in our lifetime. But as someone from a hyphenated identity and someone with a diverse heritage, I personally feel that there are many prejudices and discrimination in trying to make a foothold into sort of the upper echelons of society. So I hope that we are able to do that soon, but I think that it's going to take a lot of work.
I'm a lot more optimistic. OK, it's 30 years since Neville Bonner was the first Indigenous person.
You're optimistic about a republic?